Who are put up for adoption are mixed race, and so that also is a reason for adoption. If they're only half Korean and maybe half Filipino or half Cambodian or something like that, there is a lot of bullying. So that may be one reason that people don't really talk about it.
Do you have any questions about her presentation?
The talk is a little bit shorter than normal, so we can have a longer Q&A session today.
Yeah.
So you can feel free to raise your hand and also write down a question, whenever you think of it. We'll be around to collect questions, but feel free to raise your hand.
Come up with any question you want to discuss about.
And this was just about my research. I know some random other general stuff about Korean adoption, which we can talk about. I just don't want to bore you either. Cool, thanks guys.
I was wondering, with some of the stats you had about reasons why people don't want to adopt in Korea, have you compared those with other countries at all for, like in the states, why we don't want to adopt
Yes.
what members of like?
Yeah, definitely. So I've looked at it for the States, but not for anywhere else, particularly because Korean adoptees often go to America. They also go a lot to England, Sweden, and Australia, but particularly with the US because of America. So with the US, the main reason for adoption is because you feel kind of like a hole in your family, and B, like you want to do altruistic kind of giving charitable work. Against adoption, the biggest thing that I know of is economic burden. Because in the States it's very, very expensive to adopt, something like $40,000 upwards of. So the biggest inhibitor in the States is economic burden. But only of the adoption process. In Korea, it's concerned about the cost of raising a child. In America, it's the cost of the adoption process. So there's a difference there. Yeah.
Have you spoken with adoptees who have come back and like they have, especially the ones in Seoul who are more various adoptee groups?
Yes. So I haven't talked to anyone deeply involved with adoptee groups, but I do have several Korean American adoptee friends who have come to Korea or even not come to Korea, but they do not feel interest in being involved in Korean culture at all. They don't feel connected and they don't feel that they have been welcomed in Korean culture. But to be fair, I only have like 5 of those friends, so maybe my pool is too small.
Do you, just following up on that one, do you have any ideas on like why that might be the case? Like why Korean American adoptees feel welcome or just any of these?
Yeah, I think part may be kind of a closed Korean culture. Like Koreans are often not open to discussion about adoption, and it may just be a lack of awareness. If I feel like I don't know anything about a subject, I'm not going to talk about a subject very much. So I don't want to throw the entire culture under the bus, but I think it's, from my friends' perspective, it feels like a closed culture. But it may just be that they are not very involved in Korean culture either. So.
Because of domestic adoption in Korea, you know, the generally, we speak, some family have no son or the owner of the family will bring the baby from another house, another family. Is the Korean adoption is the generally we speak, but there's the exceptional case. The one domestic, one family is that there's an elder brother and the younger brother, and the youngest brother, and the elder brother have no son. And in all times in Korean adoption systems, the elder brother have a son, and so he would like to bring his nephew, the younger brother's son. He would like to bring the son he is the nephew of the owner of the young the brother. And so he have to go to the
Andong clan, basically, their family register is very detailed in such a way that it can be used for part of my research from the 15th to the 20th century. And they have several cases of that, actually, the older brother adopting the younger brother's son, his nephew. And in one case, in fact, the younger brother's sons all died also. The younger brother had, I think, 3 sons or 4 sons, and they all died. So the adopted son then took responsibility for both families. So a lot of it has to do with like family rights, Confucian rights and things like that, how they would respect the ancestors. So then the adopted son would do both ceremonies.
yes, the younger brother's son. He should move to the
Right.
brother's son.
Right.
When he's young,
Yeah.
he would spend very unhappy times. He would wishing he would long for his real father, real mother,
Right.
but he cannot go to his real father and his real mother.
Right.
That's the he's the unhappy stage.
So that also is one of the criteria of like adoption inhibitors that I also mentioned, where you're unable to raise it as a biological child, raise the adopted child as a biological child, because people may be afraid of like the child having loyalty to kind of the biological family or the first family. And I think Colin will probably talk about this next week as he's discussing M-Dream. There are a lot of cases in which Koreans choose not to adopt children over the age of about 18 months or 2 years because they're afraid of the kid having memories of their first family and having maybe disciplinary problems or loyalty tie issues or just some related problems because they feel like, oh, you're not my real parents at the age of 2. From my very American standpoint, I'm so sorry, this is so disrespectful, but I feel like it's ridiculous. Like, of course this kid needs a home, like, we should take care of this kid, and maybe, you know, they're 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, they still need a home. I'm so sorry, I know that's disrespectful, but, so, yeah.
Do you think it could also be related just to the fact that people want less and less children these days?
Yeah, I definitely think so, and that is also related to the economic issue as education is getting more and more expensive. That has been noted as a very serious concern for potential adoptive families. So, yeah, and then people, of course, as women are entering the workforce more, people want fewer children or no children, and so that may be the case, but also, I totally forgot to tell you about the Special Adoption Act of 2012. Okay, so in 2012, there was a Special Adoption Act, and basically domestic adoption, in the hopes that they could raise domestic adoption and awareness about adoption in Korea, the regulations on international adoption got really, really tight. So Holt International had actually a huge, setback almost because of that. So yeah, adoption internationally has become much more difficult.
That's part of the reason why I asked about the adoptee groups. I think some of them were heavily involved with the passing of that law.
Yeah, I'm sure.
As well.
Yeah, I haven't, honestly, my interest is not that much in international adoption, so much as domestic adoption, but yeah, I do know that it got a lot harder, particularly related to how things are recorded, just because a lot of the data has been very unclear, a lot of the information in the medical records and birth records and things like that. So yeah, so part of that is a lot of children are abandoned rather than submitted to an agency. And so yeah, when the agencies started requiring more documentation from birth parents, the rate of abandonment went way up.
Maybe for anyone who has read some part of your paper that was in the introduction, maybe some people haven't. Did you mention your initial interest in the topic?
Well, I'm not adopted. I have a biological family. I live with my biological family. So, but in my hometown there is a lot of adoption, and also when I was in university I had a lot of adopted friends. And when I came to Korea, I watched a couple of documentaries and just kind of started thinking about it. So actually, I started thinking about this project more than 2 years ago, but didn't really start doing anything about it until about 9 months ago. Yeah. So that is where the general interest came. One thing about, I did mention, like, it's kind of an altruism thing in America, but it's kind of a pride thing also, like, oh, look at me, I adopted this child. So often people don't mind that the kid looks different from them because then it's obvious that, oh, look, I did something nice for this child. So what I can remember, I don't remember for sure. From what I can remember, about 10 grand, $10,000 approximately. Which, that's still very expensive.
You have suggested some reasons why we don't adopt, like people don't feel need for adoption or like economic burden. But do you think the most fundamental reason that people do not adopt this?
So according to the research that I've already read, it's kind of, the biggest one is not feeling the need for adoption. To me, that is not clear what that means. Both in Korean, as I read it in Korean, and as I read the English translation. Because not feeling the need for adoption could mean lots of things. So I want to know more specifically like what that means. So that will be part of my survey. I also think economic burden is really huge. So, and then Confucian ideals a little bit, but I think maybe the other two more strongly. Which is not where I started. I started thinking that it was very much Confucian ideals. So that has kind of changed as I've been doing research.
Confucian cultures would affect the domestic adoption system in Korea.
Yeah.
Very much affected.
I think very much, but I think less so than just, I don't know what adoption is. I think saying, I don't know what adoption is more of a problem than Confucian ideals.
Adoption rate of Korea is relatively lower than that of America.
Yes.
And do you think it's because of like economic burden? Because in Korea, to raise your children, you have to like pay a lot of money for their education or other things. But like compared to Korea, in America, they don't usually invest a lot of money for their education. And so, do you think it's one of the reasons why America adopts more children than Korea?
I think in America, I think we just have a more open mindset towards adoption to begin with, and so that automatically makes us more willing. But also, some economic, I think it's less about the financial aspect and more just openness, and we're like kind of looking for some, even though we have 2 children, we have in our heart this feeling that we should have 3 children. So we'll adopt another child. This feeling, I don't know how to explain, but it's this feeling. And then also altruism, like trying to do good, give to someone else. So I think the reasons for adoption in America are much different than that in Korea.
Yeah, I have a question related to this question.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what kind of benefits if the American parents adopt the domestic or Indonesia overseas.
Oh,
Yes,
for
example, financial support by government.
Yeah, so American parents, from what I know, and again, I'm interested in Korean domestic adoption. I only know a little bit about American domestic adoption. But from what I understand, we only get benefits if we adopt domestically as Americans. But that comes in the form of tax cuts for the time, the duration of the adoption process. After you adopt, then there are no more financial benefits. Like that child is yours and it's the same as it was before. If you foster a child, so just have them for a short period of time, there's a lot more financial benefits that come with that. If you adopt a child, it's just saying, this is my child, and that's the end. Like, the government won't give a lot just during the process of adoption, which can take a really long time, maybe 18 months to 2 years. If you adopt internationally, usually the time frame is significantly longer, but that is completely your financial commitment. There's no support from the government that I'm aware of.
Well, since you're doing research about Korean domestic adoption, have you interviewed any Korean domestic adoptees?
No. So two reasons for that. First is my limitations. There are a lot of them. And second is a lot of people are just not open to it. I don't know any Korean adoptees. If you know any Korean adoptees or people who have tried to adopt, please refer them to me. I would love to talk to them. So the only current access that I have into the system, because of my limitations, culture, language, openness, is Kang, who will be coming next week to speak. So he's the director of a koon, like a foster home orphanage situation. But other than that,